Michigan Out of Doors Online is brought to you in part by Mr. Muskie Charters, offering full-service guided fishing trips for walleye, muskie, bass, and sturgeon on Lake St. Clair and the Detroit and St. Clair rivers. Booking information is online at mrmuskiecharters.com. Hey everybody, welcome to Michigan Out of Doors. We are here at Outdoorama, and it is Big Buck Night East. Jenny, the deer, every year there's just big stories, big racks, and we got them from all over the state. We got some from the UP, we got some from state land, public land, everything. So I'm very excited to hear the stories.
The stories are always the best, and we never hear the stories until you hear the stories, so it's going to be a lot of fun tonight.
That's right. Make sure you stay tuned. It's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan out of doors.
What a beautiful day in the woods.
Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy, the wonder and the love of Michigan. As the wind comes whispering through the trees, the sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream, it's a love of Michigan we all share.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Country Smokehouse, a sportsman's destination since 1988. Featuring varieties of homemade sausage, jerky, brats, and gourmet entrees. Holiday gift boxes can be assembled in-store or online. Details at countrysmokehouse.com. By AnglerQuest Pontoons, a mid-Michigan company building boats for fishermen by fishermen. AnglerQuest Pontoons are designed for comfort and functionality. On the web at anglerquestpontoons.com.
Soaking in the rich tradition of Michigan hunting for over 30 years, Vanguard is proud to sponsor our friends at Michigan Out of Doors TV.
Okay, well, we have a lot of hunters that are bringing 2 bucks on stage tonight, and our first one is Autumn Pratt. She's got her mom, Dawn, here to help her with her 2 bucks that she got this year. Autumn is 10 years old. She got both of these bucks with a crossbow in Macomb County. Which one is the 100-incher, Autumn?
100, and that's the 98.
100 inches and 98 inches. They're both 8 points. Tell us what happened. When did you get your first one?
I took the first one on the youth hunt in September, and the second one I got on October 12th, I believe.
Nice. So who do you hunt with out there?
My mom.
Autumn has some pretty lofty goals. So Dawn, tell us a little bit about what Autumn's goals are.
Autumn's goal is to take away my first woman Grand Slam in the record books for Michigan. So she wants to do that. She's got a way better head start on me than I ever had. So, and I'm going to help her nurture that desire to do so.
All right, our next hunter is Tom Wodarski. Shot this buck with a crossbow, scored 138 and 1/8. This was shot in Sheboygan County, public land, 11-pointer. Tom, I've hunted Sheboygan County. There's not a lot of big deer in there. What happened on this hunt?
Well, I haven't hunted with a bow for like 25, 26 years. And my boys bought me a crossbow for Christmas the year before, and they got a spot ready, and we went out there, and it was like the third or fourth time I hunted. Buck come in at 20 to 5.
Okay.
I went in at 4 o'clock, was only there for 30, 40 minutes.
And this is on public ground. Is this a spot that you've hunted before then over the years?
No, never hunted there before. And he come in on a run and stopped right where I walked in. And he stood behind some brush for a couple of minutes and just stood there, and finally he stepped out right where I walked in. I thought he was going to take off, but just crossed the path, and I shot, and that was it.
How far was he away when you shot?
18 yards.
18 yards. And this is the first deer you shot with a crossbow then, right?
Yes, it dressed out at 223.
Wow, 223. Any idea how old this buck was up there?
It was either 4.5 or 5.5.
4.5, 5. And then when you got up to the deer, were you by yourself? Did you have some buddies come? Or?
No, my oldest boy was with me. He got a little excited.
Well, I can see why. That is a buck of a lifetime on state land, Sheboygan County. Let's give Tom a round of applause for one heck of a buck. Nice job.
Well, this one's an opening day, the 15th. It was a long set in the morning, about 11 o'clock. Me and my son were heading in, and I was kind of reminiscing with him. And it was snowing so hard in Washtenaw County at that moment. I said, I couldn't tell you how many times we crossed these railroad tracks, and there were the deer. And we crossed the tracks, and sure enough, he looked down to the north. He said, look, Dad, there's deer right there. Well, there's 5 does, and they came running at us. And right behind him was this buck. He stopped 80 yards out in front of us. Well, I pulled my gun down, got the scope on him, couldn't see nothing. Yeah, looked at that scope, it's covered with snow. Blew it off, of course, fogged.
And the buck's standing there the whole time, right?
They were looking at both of us, 80 yards out. And he handed me his glove. I wiped the scope off. It was like looking through a teardrop. But I managed to get back on him, and I pulled the trigger. And he ran away, and my son looked at me and said, you missed. Well, I looked up at him, and I said, you never even pulled your gun down. What are you talking about? But the story behind this one is, yeah, I made a bad shot, and I didn't find him for 3 weeks. But I never stopped looking for him, and there he is.
That's awesome. And you're doing all this while battling lung cancer and going through chemo and radiation, you said, right?
Yep.
Well, good for you for getting out there.
Shoot straight and never give up.
And Tammy, I heard a little bit about the story, but tell me, how did you kind of get into hunting, and how did this whole thing get started?
So my husband hasn't hunted deer in over 20 years. And in 2015, a couple of my female friends had posted their big bucks. Liz, a couple girls. So I said to my husband, I want to go deer hunting. And he said, okay, baby. And he just kind of pacified me. And I went out, got all the gear, and waited a whole year. And then we went out. And the first 2 years, we did not see any bucks, probably because my husband slurps his coffee so loud. But year 3, day 3, we went out, and he said to me, we'd only seen doe. So he said, if you see a doe, I want you to take your gun and just real slow, put your sights on her and just get ready. We weren't going to shoot it. He's only got a 6-point, so I wanted to get at least a 7-point. Very competitive. But
And up to this point, you've never shot a deer before, right?
never. So we were talking about this whole conversation, and then we never saw this guy come out of the corn, and he had his head down. So he's like, okay, there's a doe out there. We couldn't see his head. He's like, there's a doe out there, so practice with your gun. So I quietly, slowly got my gun, and he got the binoculars, and he said my new 3 favorite words that he says to me, it's a shooter. So I was totally stoked, and I fogged up my scope and got too excited. Anyway, he got me to the right window. He pulled my shoulders back, said he's going to move. Sure enough, he came out of a blind spot right into my scope. I never looked at the rack. Wow. And I just shot it, perfect kill shot right through the heart, rear end flew up, and he went about 20 yards and went right down.
Okay, our next successful hunter on Big Buck Night is Jerry Spreet, who shot this Macomb County 10-point. That's just amazing. 152.5 inches with your crossbow. When did you shoot it?
October 7th at 6:35. He came out, stood broadside 15 yards from me. Shot him, and did a couple flips and laid in the field. That was it. It was quick.
Wow, and had you seen this buck? Did you know he was living out there?
I had seen him all last year on the trail cam, but he never came out during the day. He was nocturnal. One day he came out, it was 7 below zero, and he was out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was the only time I had a daylight picture of him. But this year, I had quite a few pictures, and he came out in time that I could shoot.
That's awesome. So what happened afterwards then? I'm assuming this is your biggest buck of a lifetime.
Yeah, it took me 50 years to get a trophy. After I shot him, I called my wife, and she says, I said, I got him. She says, you got what? I said, the big one. Oh, she went ballistic, and then she called the son-in-laws. They both came back, so we were all out in the field celebrating, taking pictures, and got him out, and it took 3 of us to put him in the truck. He weighed 210, dressed. He was a big deer.
Okay, we have our next lucky hunter. This is Jason Mackenzie. This was shot in Mackinac County, way north, on state land, so another public ground buck. Shot it with a shotgun. It was 12 scoreable points and scored 158. Now, Jason, do you see bucks like this on state land all the time?
No, I don't. I pass up a few little ones, through the whole week I was hunting. And
At a deer camp, or do you guys have a place up there? Or?
my brother lives up there.
Okay.
So we went out Labor Day, we scouted and put up stands up, and then we start watching the cameras and go from there. And then hunted for about a week straight, and watched little bucks not even worth dragging out,
How far in are you?
About a quarter mile.
Okay.
And then the last day he come walking out, you could see him about 100 yards away, He was walking out, and all I could see is just a main frame on his horns. And he walked right in. I had a doe on a bait pile. I walked right to their doe and shot him with about 35, 40 yards. Wow. So.
Did you get a little nervous when he was coming in, or did you have...
I was shaking like a little schoolgirl.
So now, do you shoot bucks like this every few years or never? What's the deal up there?
This is the one and only so far.
And so, what did you drive him around town? Did you show everybody? What'd you do when you got him in the truck, and where'd you go?
Oh, I headed home. I got out of town.
For 3 years, my buddy Jeff and I had seen him on camera.
3 years.
Never during the day.
Okay, another story like that. So how old do you think he is then?
6.5.
6.5, wow. All right, so what all happened then on November 10th?
Well, he came in, he was following 8 does, and he had just passed my buddy Jeff. And he came in, and he stood there for 10 minutes with his vitals covered. So he finally stepped out. I shot him, waited for my buddy to come, and we followed the blood trail for a ways, found a bloody bed. We decided to back out. So I thought the shot was better than that, but, I guess not. But anyways, I called Bo, who is with Michigan Deer Trackers, and he has a dog named Bella that tracks deer. So my wife and I, my wife Betsy, we got up in the morning, Bo came over, and we followed the deer trail to the river, and that's where he was. And he popped up behind some logs. My wife tried to corral him. I don't know. Anyways.
That's a brave woman.
She is. She is. And I took another shot at him, hit him, and he jumped in the river. And I was throwing my wallet, my cell phone. You guys know how it is. I was going in. And then my wife noticed that my sister's pontoon boat was still in the river. So we called my brother-in-law. He came down, and we got him out of the river. So
That's awesome. A pontoon retrieval. I don't know if we've had one of those on Big Buck Night yet.
This is my son Ruger. He's got the sheds off of this buck from 2017. The first time that I seen this buck was in December of 17. I was already tagged out, freezers full, so I wasn't hunting the whole month. In January, I go and pull my camera card, and I see this guy run through one picture all year. That's all I knew of him. So 2018 rolls around, thousands of pictures, never seen this guy. Didn't really think much of it anyways. And then I went to Posen with some friends for, opening day deer camp. And on the 14th, we're sitting there playing cards, and I have a camera that shoots pictures right to me. I almost should have just turned that off before I went up there. And sitting there playing cards, boom, phone starts blowing up, like looking. This guy's standing right in front of my blind, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And this is the day before opener.
This is the day before the opener.
And how far from home are you?
Hundreds of miles away.
You had to think about it, though.
Yeah, I was sick, to be honest with you. It almost ruined my trip, But I stuck it out till the 19th. We had a nice time up there. But first thing when I got home was to get back in that blind. I told my wife, I said, we're sitting dark. I'm sitting dark to dark. That's it. I have to. So go out there nice and early. And seen a few, 1, 2-year-old bucks, some does. And then I'm doodling on my phone, 9:30, and whether I seen it or heard it, I don't know. I looked up and boom, 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 three bounds, and he's standing right in front of me.
How far away?
75 yards. The gun was up, shot it. It ran into a pine tree. All the snow falls out of the tree, and it was over.
For the last 2 years, he's been hanging out on the property, but he leaves like September 15th to the 17th every year. Goes to the south. Thank God last year, the guy, the property he goes to, he passed on him, and passed on him, and passed on him, and passed on him. So 2018 season, he came in on the first, got to about 70 yards, and coyotes come out, cleared the field. I thought that was it. I was worried he was going to leave again. Went out on the third, wind was wrong on the second, went out on the third. He come out from 200 yards away, fed across the beam straight to me to 17 yards. Never turned broadside. Heard the coyotes off to the west again. I thought they were coming. So 17 yards, steep quarter and angle. I let it go, and he ran about 60 and piled up. And I was pumped, for sure.
So what was going through your mind watching him come all the way across? Did you come undone at any point?
You know, about halfway, I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest, and I got a little riled up, but just reminded myself, just calm down, pick a spot, make it happen. And worked out good. But I got to give credit to my fiance, Christina. She's right here in the green coat. I got a weak stomach. I puke on every deer I got. And she grabbed the knife and said, "Get out of the way," and she was elbow deep before I knew it.
I got my stand about 7:15, and just sitting there. I had a thing of coffee, and I poured a cup of coffee, and I'm sitting there looking out. Right about 8 o'clock, out of the corner of my eye, I caught this. All I seen was white. You know, it was pretty heavy brush, you know, that he was coming through on the top of a ditch line.
Are you in a tree stand or a ground blind?
I was in a tree stand, yeah. And as soon as I seen the horns, I knew they were big, but like I said, it was pretty thick, and I couldn't. So I tried not to focus. I knew he was nice, but I didn't know how nice. And all of a sudden, he come in, and I didn't see any other deer. And all of a sudden, I pulled up on him and had just a small area to shoot, and I shot, and I think I missed him the first time. But he was just walking, so.
How far was he?
Probably about 35, 40 yards.
He's close.
Yeah, not far. So I shot again. He got in a little window, and I shot again. And he kind of arched his back a little, and not too much of a mule kick, but he sucked it up pretty good. I knew I hit him. So, but I got down there and couldn't find him. And I'm like, oh man, I hope he didn't get away. So I goes, well, I'm going to go down in that creek. So I walked down in that creek, and it kind of turned. And I looked across that creek, and all I could say, I was like, oh, man, I couldn't believe how big he was, And
now, he is huge. Do you shoot, you said you shot a buck the day before this one.
Yeah.
What'd you shoot the day before?
I got a 7-point the day before.
Yeah, just a little 7-point.
Yeah, he was a nice buck, but, yeah, nothing like this. I've been hunting 45 years, and, I've harvested a lot of deer, but nothing ever comparable to this.
Yeah, it was opening day, and me and my Uncle Frank went out behind our house, and we were in the middle of the woods, and we started hearing some noise to our left, and all of a sudden a doe pops up out of nowhere, and my Uncle Frank goes, keep an eye on it, keep an eye on it. I go, okay. And then right after he says that, this big boy comes out, and holy moly, my heart stopped.
Now, is this your first buck?
No, it's my 4th Michigan deer.
Nice. Okay, so you got a little experience under your belt. You know what buck fever is. This is a different kind, right?
Yeah, way different.
All right, so what happens next?
Well, it was weaving in between trees on this hot doe, and I couldn't get my sight on him. Every time I tried to pull a trigger, he kept on running away. And then the doe started to turn for the field, and the buck was going to go with it. But my Uncle Frank, he fired off a shot, and I didn't think the buck knew where the shot came from, and it just stood there. And then I shot it and it went down his tracks.
Okay, so that first, was it a warning shot, or were you shooting at the buck?
It was a desperation shot.
It worked, though, eh?
Yeah, the night before, his dad warned us about this deer was out there and didn't want it to get to the neighbors. And he kind of drew it all up, and he had it all staged, and believe it or not, everything kind of came out the way he drew it up. So,
including the warning shot?
Well, it was going to get to the neighbors, and it got in an opening, and I could see it, so I shot at it, and it stopped right in the opening. So he got a real clear shot then, and he downed it.
Did you know this buck was in here? Have you been seeing him, or what was the story?
No, I had no clue that this buck was in the area. This is definitely a case of dumb luck, to be perfectly honest with you. And to tell you the story, there's kind of a story behind the story. And so my buddy, this was his second year hunting with us, and his second year hunting deer in general. And my dad and I, we set a field blind. My buddy was sitting the blind in the woods. And on opening day, he ended up harvesting an 11-pointer. My dad and I, we've been hunting for, I think we estimated about 25 years. We've never seen anything close to an 11-pointer. Literally, they had to coax me into going hunting the next day, and thank God they did. So anyway, hunted that afternoon, sat in the same blind that he got the 11-pointer from, and watched a couple of doe come in. And next thing I know, I kind of see this movement from the left, and looked like a tree moving, to be perfectly honest with you.
Looks like a tree now.
Yeah, and anyway, he came in, in pursuit of that doe. He was probably 60, 70 yards, when I got the myself together to get the gun out the window and get it on him. So anyway, he ran maybe 50 yards after I shot him. I heard him crash. But yeah, scored 173, not typical, and according to the commemorative bucks guy, this is the third biggest buck ever taken in Manistee County. So
wow, that is awesome. That is awesome.
He just kept coming. This whole time I'm drawn back, full draw on my bow, and it felt like eternity. I don't know, it was probably close to 2 minutes. He came all the way into 8 yards and rubbed on a tree about where that light is, and I'm just at full draw. I don't want to take a head-on shot, and I'm starting to get nervous. Like I'm looking at the rack now. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't look at the rack, look at the deer. And all of a sudden he locks up, and I was like, oh man, he knows something's going on. He turned around, took 2 bounds back the way he came, and I grunted with my mouth just real quick. And he stopped for a split second to look back, and I had a little hole, and I snuck that arrow in there, and it was a good spot, good location. So that was that one. And so I had a heck of a season. That's my biggest deer. I'm feeling good. And I've had 4 years of pictures of this deer right here, this 12-point, and I've never seen it in person. No one's ever seen it in person. So I checked my camera on a Sunday, it was the 17th, and the Thursday before that, he showed up in daylight. I had one other picture this year, and he showed up. So I went out that night at the edge of a bean field, thinking he'd come out because it was late season, with my muzzleloader that time, and nothing came out. Didn't see him. The next day was a Monday, and I got out right out of work, and I was like, I'm going out hunting. Well, being muzzleloader season, my dad and I, we kind of share a muzzleloader. We only have one. Dad was out with it. And I said, well, I'm not just going to sit in the house. So I grabbed my bow, got out about 4:15, and I was in a stand that's kind of down a hill, and I'm looking up the hill, and I hear a deer coming. But I didn't want to stand up because if I moved, he would be eye level coming over that hill. So I just knocked on my release, and I'm waiting. And as soon as he crested the hill, I knew exactly what deer it was. I knew this was the deer I dreamed about. This is the deer that's haunted me for 4 years. and he was headed kind of parallel with me, and I got up, drew my bow back. I stayed calm. Somehow I stayed completely calm, and then he started on the 45 coming right to me. I grunted about 30 yards, stopped him, made a perfect double lung shot. He went over a log, buckled up, and then started plowing, bulldozing himself the rest of the way. And I was holding onto the tree, and I was just, this isn't real. This isn't real. I didn't think it was real. And I saw him go down, saw him put his head down. And I texted my dad, and I just said, it's finished. And he goes, you get one, huh? And I said, no, I got the one.
Thanks to everyone that made Big Buck Night East so much fun. Make sure you stay tuned next week as we have Big Buck Night West from Grand Rapids and the Ultimate Sports Show.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Greenstone Farm Credit Services, making recreational land ownership possible across Michigan and northeast Wisconsin. Begin your land financing journey at one of Greenstone's 37 locations or greenstonefcs.com. By Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises of Munising, exploring Lake Superior's Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. With its sandstone cliffs, caves, waterfalls, and lighthouses, Pictured Rocks Boat Cruise is on the web at picturedrocks.com. Closed captioning provided by Randy's Hunting Center, serving Michigan as Ruger and Leupold's National Dealer of the Year, and inventor of Ruger's 450 Bushmaster rifle.
When I wander far away, a dream stays with me night and day. It's the road that leads to my home state. I am a Michigan man. Changing seasons paint the scene like rainbow trout in a hidden stream. The white-tailed deer in the tall pine trees. I am a Michigan man. I am